you're here. Oh, thanks for joining me. Happy Valentine's Day. And as I learned today, happy Galentine's Day. I learned all about that today. How are you? Hey, Jay. Thanks for joining me. Definitely let me know where you're from. You can see my whole story about what I thought about Galentine's Day on my Insta story after this live. It's been a really fun day, but I'm glad you're here. You know, it's so interesting how we started out and we ended up going live every Wednesday, and we just happened to fall on a Wednesday of Valentine's Day, because this all started out because my heart was to just show love defined and how you define love in your life. And so if you're joining us or this is your first time joining me, my name is Kamilah Tibbitts. I'm an entrepreneur. I've owned a company for the past 20 years in the home and the gift industry. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a speaker, but really I just have a heart to build community and just to launch people into the fullness of who they are. So let's just get into it. Right after I finish this live, I'm catching a flight. I'm going to New York, and so I don't want to seem rushed, but then again, I'm really excited because I'm going to visit my son who just moved to Williamsburg, and so my heart is just so full and so full of excitement of what's going to happen these next couple of days. So make sure you join on to my Insta story. Shout out New York. Jay Tibbetts said shout out New York. So we're shouting out New York. We're shouting out Williamsburg. I've never been to Williamsburg before. I've always kind of been on the Upper East Side, so I'm excited. I heard it's like super cool and super hip. So let's just get into it. So this all started because I wanted people to know like what it felt like to feel love, and like love doesn't mean always in partnership, that you can experience love every day. And so we started to put 4 stakes in the ground, right? Because we're building a covering, we're building a tabernacle, we're building a tent of what we want to accomplish and what our goals are for 2018. And so if you're walking into something new and you're walking into your goals, you need to put some stakes in the ground, right? You need to like declare and have some territory and some things set up, some boundaries. You know, when we create a boundary, whether, you know, that's a real big buzzword right now, and you know, if there's a prized home, there's a boundary or a gate that says keep out. Hi Sing, how are you? Thanks for joining me. And the boundary is there and the gate is there to keep the land and what's valuable safe, right? And so that's what we're doing. Like, we're setting up some boundaries and setting up some stakes to keep safe what you're walking into and what you're going to be growing this year. So we have these 4 stakes that we put in the ground. And so last week we talked about identity. If you missed that, you can definitely go to my Facebook page, and that's been uploaded. I'm just going to click that. And we're going to keep going. So last week we talked about identity. The 4 stakes that we're going to talk about over this series are identity, voice, power, and promise. So last week we talked about identity. We talked about walking out who you are, establishing who you are, being unapologetic about who you are and what you've been called to do. And this week we're going to talk about voice, you know, and what that looks like. And a lot of people think, when I say voice, a lot of people think, oh, someone who sings, right? But I can tell you that you're like, once you establish who you are and your identity, the next thing is to talk about your voice. So I talked about a little last week about my mom, and one thing about my mom, and I'm sure you have someone in your life where the sound of your voice, the sound of their voice is piercing. No matter where you are, you can be in a grocery store, you can be upstairs in your room, you can be in a service. If you hear that person's voice, you immediately respond, right? If you hear that person's voice, you immediately turn around. And that was the kind of voice that my mom had, right? Not only did she have that type of voice, but she had that type of laugh. And so even though she's not here with me anymore, there are times when I have voice memos through my iPhone and I just play her voice. Hey, how are you, Girl Confident? This is someone that I really look up to, just joined us, so it's awesome. So every time that I still have the voice memos where I play her voice, and even though she's not here physically, the sound of her voice and the power of what she's saying still has an effect on me today. And I would say, like, that's the power of voice, right? That we're gonna talk about you carrying a voice and you walking into something that it doesn't matter if you sing. It doesn't matter if you don't even like the tone of your voice. It's what your voice carries and what it's meant to do. So we're gonna go through 3 really quick things around voice. We're gonna talk about the strength of your voice. We're gonna talk about the influence of your voice. and we're going to talk about the recognition of your voice. Because like if you're joining us, last week we talked about identity. You know who you are. We talked about that. You've seen examples of that. I'm sure you've seen confirmations of what we talked about last week, and now we're just going to establish the voice. So like I said, for me, that person was my mom, that person whose voice was very clear to me. And there's someone in your life that's like that for you, right? There's someone in your life where when you hear their voice, it creates a reaction. Now, it could be anxiety, it could be excitement, it could be control. Like whatever that emotion is, it creates a reaction for you. So we're just gonna start to define like what you want your voice to be in 2018, right? Like what you want your voice to have. So the strength of your voice comes not with being super heavy, because my voice is super high, but there are times like when I'm talking about something very serious, my voice will change. And initially I didn't like my voice. You know, I've called for my daughter to call in sick to work, and they literally are like, can I talk to your mom? It's like, I'm the mom. Like, I'm the mom. This is not her. And so we talked about this, how I get excited and I have to get closer to you guys. So it's not about the tone of your voice or how high, how low it is, or how soft or how deep it is. That's not what the power is. The power and the strength of your voice is going to come back to knowing who you are, right? Because if I know who I am, when I speak and when I say something, the authority of my voice and the authority of what I'm being called to say and my confidence in knowing what I've been called to say produces the strength of my voice. It has nothing to do with how my voice sounds in terms of high, low, it's a little kid, it's a teenager. It's about the authority of my voice. So that's the first thing, right? We just want to have a strength and a knowing of your voice. So once we have the strength of your voice, and what that does is that creates a safety, right? So like I was a young mom. I've been a mom since I was 21. I'm 42 now. And even as a 21-year-old mom, guess what? I may have been young, but my son still saw the authority of my voice, right? I may have been young, but as a toddler, if I said something to him, it still commanded him to stop. I may have been young, and if you're joining me and you're a young mom, you know what that's like. And it has nothing to do with that, because you're caught in the strength of who you are as a mom, right? Because when you're a mom, there are no prerequisites for being a mom. Like once you birth something in your womb, the same way we're birthing something with you right now, we're putting up this canopy, then you're called to be a mom. And so whatever you're called to do, have authority in what you've been called to do. Have authority in the strength and the confidence of, this is who I am, this is what I'm called to do. And when I speak, there's authority in the voice that I carry because I know who I am. Hey, Silver Soul. I like that name, Silver Soul Twina. So give me a thumbs up. Let me know who you're calling in from. This is live, so we can interact. If I say something, if it causes an impression in you, if it causes a reaction, we're just going to keep going. So again, we're going to talk about the influence of your voice. Because what happens is that, like, this is the technology age, right? So I'm live right now. It's Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Well, guess what? When my assistant uploads this to my Facebook tomorrow, the influence of what I'm saying tonight will span the day, right? The influence I'm saying tonight will span timestamp. The influence what I'm saying tonight is because you'll tag a friend. So my voice carries not by the time, not by the day, not by whether I'm not in the room. It's based on what I've released, right? Because when I have authority and I have influence and I stand confident in my voice, what I'm releasing is changing an atmosphere. What I'm releasing is changing a thought process. What I'm releasing is changing a decision that you may have thought that you were going to make right now tonight. And that comes from influence. So we want your voice to have strength and authority because you know who you are. We want your voice to have influence because it will change an atmosphere. It will change a room. You can walk into a room, declare something, speak. You're in a meeting, you speak, you excuse yourself. What you've deposited and what you've released in that meeting will still carry on toward the action items and the processes and the strategies, even if you're not in the room. And that's the type of voice that you can build when you have strength and authority. And the last part about it is recognition, right? The recognition of your voice. So I talked about how I really recognized my mom's voice when I was a little kid, and how with her even passing away, I still play the voice memos and I still have that emotional recognition of who she is. And I would challenge you that your voice is recognized as you are recognized. And so your voice is just as strong as your reputation. Your voice is just as strong as your personal brand. And like, if you're joining me and you're like, you know what, Kamilah, my reputation going into 2018 is tarnished. I'm walking around with shame. My reputation is not what I want it to be, and I've made some poor choices. Well, that's okay, because the same way that you can change your reputation and change your brand one day at a time, one step at a time, one interaction at a time, one engagement at a time, as you start to change with each of those interactions, your voice will change too, because then you'll get confirmation, and then the authority will come, and then the strength will come. So the recognition comes with the power. The recognition comes with the authority. And there are people, like really close friends of my mom today, where I'll say something, I'll be talking to them, and I'll laugh, and they'll say, oh my gosh, when you laugh when I talk to you, it totally reminds you of your mother. But what they're saying, there's so much that they're not saying. There's so much that they're saying, and there's so much that they're not saying in that. What they're saying is, hey, when I hear you and I hear your voice, it sounds like your mom. But what they're also saying is what you carry, what's been deposited into you, the legacy of your mom, the strength and authority of your voice is that of your mother. What they're saying is what your mom poured into you. When I hear your voice and when I hear the power that's coming through it and the influence and impact that you have, I know that's your mother. And I will call you today to say, define who your voice is. Write it down. Write down, this is what the strength of my voice sound like, because I know this is what the strength of my voice. Hey, halftime, game time. That's a good one. This is what the strength of my voice is, because I know who I am. If you missed it last week, start to define who you are. Walk it out. It will change your voice. This is the influence I want my voice to have, because I know who I am and I have power to change that. And then this is the recognition that my voice will carry. And then you just start to declare that over yourself. You can call it a declaration, you can call it a resolution, but you just start to speak that out and start to see how, as you start to walk with more authority, your voice will change, because it's a knowing. And that's where I'm getting everyone, that's where we're going today. Hello, halftime game. We're going to you having a knowing. That it's not whether or not we're having live, it's the influence that I'm having, the influence that my voice is having, the impact that it's having on you. It's gonna change in your core. Like, we're depositing seeds for you for a mighty harvest to come, and I believe that. So that's our goal for the year. So just to regroup, the strength of your voice, the influence of your voice, the authority of your voice. It starts with one interaction. It starts with one conversation. It starts with one yes. And that's I just want to land on this really fast. All that's necessary is your yes, right? Like anything, it comes down to your yes. So as you walk through the year, make your yes consistent, because that's all that's wanted. That's all that God wants. If that's my faith, I call it God. That's all that the universe wants. That's all that your community wants. That's all that the people that you come in contact want. That's all your tribe wants. Everyone wants your yes. Because if we start with your yes and your yes is consistent, everything will follow after that. So again, interaction, conversation, your yes, and it will change your voice. So I'm gonna hop on a plane. Definitely DM me if you missed this. This will be on for 24 hours. Like I said, my assistant Julie. Oh, by the way, go on my Instagram. I think it's like 2 rows down, and you'll see Julie putting it down at a conference that we went to this weekend. That's a tangent and that's a side note, but she's Wonder Woman. Don't let the packaging fool you. So definitely check that out on my Instagram. If you want to tag someone, it'll be on my Facebook. You can still tag them and share with them. DM me. I love the messages that I received today. Some pretty impactful, heavy messages of people that have been changed, of forgiveness that has happened, of people that have been launched into speaking careers because of this series. And that's my heart. My heart is just to see people walk into the fullness of who they are. My heart is just to see people called to be who they're supposed to be. And again, we're just going to make this canopy. We're going to build this tabernacle. We're going to lay some stakes in the ground, and we're going to claim what is ours for 2018. So like I said, I'm hopping on a plane. I'll be in New York. Check my story. You'll see the organized chaos of when my family gets together. That's a whole nother live. I'll try to go live while I'm in Williamsburg, and I'll see you guys soon. The best is yet to come. Take care. Ciao.